Hi, my name is Tom Rawls and I'm the pastor here at Proclaimers, and I'd like to welcome you to our YouTube channel. Sunday by Sunday we take great delight in sharing what the Bible has to say. The Bible, probably one of the most relevant books in the entire world, with principles that touch every area of our lives. One of the key ingredients to the life of our church and its preaching is the variety of those who actually get up and speak. From myself with over 40 years of experience, Dr. Phil Temple, who is a psychiatrist, doctor, medical doctor, again with 15 years of experience at preaching. We've just had such a phenomenal blessing by having so many great speakers. We hope you enjoy this particular YouTube video of our latest ministry here at Proclaimers. So thank you again for joining us and God bless you.
How's everyone doing? Wasn't that item amazing? Always just so impressed with what our church can do. With our band, with the items that we perform. I'm so impressed with everything. I'm advertising that we're now getting out for our Christmas service. Doesn't it look great? I was so impressed last year at the Christmas service, and I know that this year is going to be even better. So, hey, make sure you're getting people to that, because I know it's going to be in good. Everything we do tends to be really, really good. It's of such a high quality. And one of the things that I think we also do really well is actually this building right here. This building here, the space. We've actually done this really well. It is a phenomenal conferencing center. It's something that we're using to really impact the city. It's a social enterprise that we offer up to our city to sort of help them have somewhere where they can hold conferences and know that they are going to get excellent service. And you know, I hope, Mark, that was your experience. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we have so many people that are so impacted by what we do here. It's given us the ability to build these inroads into our business community. It also brings in some money. It's fantastic. But can you imagine if one day we decided that we were actually going to hire out this building on a Sunday? That we just decided, hey, what if we just skipped church just for one Sunday, and instead we got someone else to come in and hire the building? We could actually make some money from it. You know, it could be quite tempting. We could make a bit of money from hiring out this place on a Sunday. But the problem is, if we were then to decide that we were going to prioritize the space, even if it was for a bit of extra money or whatever, then we would be missing the whole point of why it exists. You see, the space is here to help fulfill our church's vision, to carry out our church's mission. We haven't created the church so that we could have the space, but rather, the space is here as a tool for our church. If we were here to hire out this space on a Sunday, it would actually detract from our mission. It would be a distraction to us. But, you know, just because we don't hire this place out on a Sunday, I've got the privilege of being involved in the team that looks after this place during the week, and just because we don't hire it out on a Sunday doesn't mean it's not actually a distraction for me on a Sunday. Because the space is so busy during the week, and when it comes to Sunday, I sometimes wish I could just pause everything. Because so often I come into a Sunday and, to be honest, I'm just preoccupied with everything from the week. I'm thinking about what the next week holds, which rooms we're going to have to set up. I'm already planning sort of the responses to the email inquiries that have come in over the weekend. I'm thinking about all the other things, about the upkeep of the building, the electrician we need to get in, the walls we need to get repainted, the areas that we need a deep clean. Sometimes there's these other projects that we're involved in, like A21, the sign-ups, the promo, the people that we need to talk to. All of these things just keep coming on, and sometimes I just want to pause everything. Just press pause, just for the Sunday. Focus on Sunday and then press play on Monday. I just feel sometimes like I'm being pulled in so many different directions. And I'm sure that there are people here who can relate to this feeling of just being dragged in so many different directions by all the other things that go on in our life. Just that feeling that our focus is actually being pulled off the main thing that we want to be focusing on. I mean, maybe it's like me. It's something in your workplace that you find is distracting you from where you think your focus should be. Or just the crazy busyness of your day just makes you feel like you're not spending enough time with your family like you know you should. Maybe it's just everything in your life just causes you not to be able to focus on that one thing that you were really, really passionate about. Maybe it feels like this is just a period of your life that you're going through, Or it could just be that it's just been going on for so long that now you can no longer focus on that main thing that you know you are passionate about, that you want to see succeed. Because we all have things that are going on in our lives. And these things can often be good, right? They can be good things that we're involved in, things that are not bad, that we want to be part of. But they can also be noble distractions. Distractions in themselves are not always bad. I mean, Pastor Tom pointed this out when he first brought up this topic. He explained how checking Instagram is a distraction that is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're checking Instagram while driving, immediately that becomes a fatal distraction because it pulls your focus off what is really important, which is staying on the road, right? If you're putting in all these extra hours and working hard at your job so you can provide your family with a happy and comfortable life, that is good. But if you then become so focused on your job that you start neglecting your family at home, then haven't you missed the whole point as to why you were doing that in the first place? In the same way, a 2-hour-long phone conversation with a friend can be great, but a 2-hour-long phone conversation with a friend when you have an important deadline in 2 hours can suddenly become a distraction that can very negatively impact your life. Just because it's a good thing doesn't mean it can't be a fatal distraction. You know, maybe you're at university, maybe you want to be social, maybe you want to be part of all the societies and teams and clubs that you can be part of. It looks great on your CV, right? It can give you a great life there, but if it means that you then no longer have enough time to work to get the grade that you probably should get, then something's gone wrong. Just because it's a good thing doesn't mean it can't be a fatal distraction. It can be so easy to be focused on something that in its essence is good, but ultimately it pulls our focus off what is really important. There are a number of things that are good, that are going on in our life, that are beneficial to us, and sometimes they're even beneficial to our society. They're really good for the people that we encounter, for our workplace and our friends or wherever it is. But if these things, which can be good, and we're pouring our time and energy into, if they become a distraction from our main thing, then that can become a fatal distraction. Because as good as these things can be, if we take our eyes off what is really important, then we are severely limiting our life. As noble as it can be, if it can disrupt or even derail your life, then that noble distraction, that good thing, can become a fatal distraction. And it's something that we also find in the Bible. Luke he talks about this story about how Jesus is invited into the home of a woman called Martha. And Martha's there, and her sister Mary also lives there. And in the cultural context of the day, the woman would have been expected to be in the kitchen, cooking, looking after the guests, providing the food, running around and making sure that everything is okay. And that's exactly what Martha's down to do. She is running around, making sure that she's a good host, serving everyone, serving this esteemed guest, Jesus, that is visiting them. However, Luke accounts that Martha's sister, Mary, sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And Strong points out that this word, distracted, it actually comes from the Greek word perispao, which describes, and it has this connotation of being pulled in many different directions, of being dragged in many different ways. It almost emphasizes the stress that I'm sure Martha was probably feeling. This stress that she was running around, keeping an eye on so many different things, being stretched in so many different areas. She must have felt like she was being dragged in so many different places just so she could keep an eye on all of these preparations until it finally just becomes too much for her. All of this just becomes too much for her. And so she goes to Jesus and she says to him, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord replied, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better and will not be taken away from her. And you know, through this account, I can honestly feel a bit for Martha. Anyone else here who's a bit of a doer will sympathize with Martha. Here is an important person that is visiting. So of course you want to make sure everything's good, right? Of course you want to make sure there's a good meal out there, that the cups are always full, that you are looking after their every need. Of course you want your guests to be comfortable. And it wasn't just their society that placed this massive emphasis on hospitality and honoring your guests, because I think that's something we do right now as well. If someone comes up to our house, we want to look after them. We want to make sure they're comfortable. We offer a cup of tea as soon as they come in. It's not a strange idea that we want to look after people as they come into our house. But Martha, she gets so annoyed that she's been left to do all the work that she goes to Jesus, asks him to tell Mary off. But Jesus' words are probably not what she was expecting. Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. I think it's important to point out right here that Jesus is not saying that serving other people is bad or unnecessary. Right before Jesus was welcomed into Mary and Martha's house, he had been talking to the experts of the law and sharing with them this story of the Good Samaritan. It was an analogy all about serving other people, even people that you might not like. Jesus had been telling the religious leaders that loving and serving others was vital. And this encounter with Martha, it doesn't diminish the importance of what Martha was doing by serving others. But rather, I think it highlights just how important Mary's response to Jesus was. Jesus was saying that what Martha was doing was important, but Mary's response was even greater. Because while Martha was running around, busy with all the preparations, Mary was there at the feet of Jesus, listening to every word that he had to say. Mary had decided that even though looking after these guests was important, spending this time with Jesus was of greater importance. I mean, Mary would have known that she was culturally expected to be involved in all the preparations and serving the guests, but at the same time, her priority was Jesus. Listening with Jesus, being present in that moment with Jesus, just building this relationship with Jesus, just focusing her attention on Jesus. What Martha was doing was good and honorable, but it made her miss out on what was most important at that time. It made her miss Jesus. As one commentator has described, if all of our activities leave us with no time to be still in the Lord's presence and hear God's word, we are likely to end up anxious and troubled. We are likely to end up with a kind of service that is devoid of love and joy and is resentful of others. And it's something that we can also run the risk of falling into. Very often we have this idea of what perhaps a good Christian should be like, what we should be doing and how we should be acting to be that perfect follower of Jesus. Sometimes we get just caught up in all the stuff we do as Christians that we can actually miss the central part of it all. And this is something that even the early church had to face. In Revelations 2, there was a message to the church in Ephesus where God says, I know your deeds, your hard work, your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked people, that you have tested those who claim to be apostles and are not, and have found them to be false. You have persevered. You have endured hardships for my name and have not grown weary. God's saying, yes, you've done some good things here. You've worked diligently. You've sacrificed your time and your energy. You've pursued justice. You have made sure you don't get misled by bad teaching or fake news. You have kept on pushing forward, even when times are tough and it may have been easier to quit. But he goes on to say, yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. Consider how far you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. If you do not repent, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place. This is really big. First, God is commending the church for doing such good work. But then he says they've missed the point. That while they've been focused on all these actions and deeds and lifestyle that they had to carry out, it's caused them to forsake the love they first had. They had missed the main point. Like Martha, they had missed Jesus. The church in Ephesus had found themselves in a place where they were ticking all the boxes. that would have been ideal if they had to live up to a religious standard. But the truth is, Jesus had so much more in store for them. He'd call them into a relationship with him. Do you know, I feel like some people feel this all the time. That they get excited when they first make that connection with Jesus, and it's all interesting and fresh, and it spurs you on to get involved in things, to get more involved in teams and the good lifestyle that you should be leading, something that's healthy and beneficial. But then as time goes on, it becomes more about the stuff that you were doing than the relationship that it's built on. It's almost like we take this walk that we're doing with Jesus and we take it back to being a religion rather than a relationship. That as we get so busy with the things that aren't necessarily bad and could actually be good, as we get so busy, we actually miss the main point. We can get so distracted by the tasks that cause us to move away from our first love, from a love with God, that it leaves us in this place of religious piety, but absent of the relationship that makes us real Christians, that makes us true followers of Jesus. Without Jesus as that motivation and the energy behind the tasks we carry out, we lose access to the greatest power that we have available to us. We lose that life of freedom, that life of abundance, that life of overflowing that Jesus wants for us. Yes, serving is important. Yes, living a lifestyle pleasing to God is important. Yes, we should be involved in things that are impacting our society. Yes, we should be part of initiatives that are making a difference to the people around us. We should be seeking justice. We should be serving. We should be persevering through hard times. All these things are good. They are all noble. They're all good. But they should never become a distraction to our relationship with God. To ensure that the things we are doing that are not becoming noble distractions, we need to make sure that everything comes from that relationship with God. And I'm very aware that maybe you are here today and you don't actually have that relationship with Jesus. But I'm also very aware that very often people are put off. They're put off Christianity because they feel like it's just a bunch of rules, that it's actually going to limit their life. But to be honest, that's as far from the truth as it can be. The core fundamental thing about Christianity is that you can have a relationship with Jesus, with God. Because Jesus sacrificed himself over 2,000 years ago, you were made worthy to be in relationship with God. So I don't want you to be put off by the things that you see other Christians doing or worrying about what comes next. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, I just want you to focus on the main thing, the core thing. And that's Jesus, a relationship with Jesus. Now, I'm aware that as I'm talking about this, you could almost seem as a justification as to why we should hold back, why we should stop serving, why we should remove ourselves from being involved, or just as an excuse not to live a good life. But those things are all important and necessary to your life. The thing is, the life that God has called you into is a life of significance, and it requires you to be involved, but only and after a relationship with him. I'm very aware that without this connection with Jesus as the main focus, we run this risk of feeling overstretched, overworked, and under pressure. That we feel like we can, almost like Martha, be dragged in so many different directions. Like we're being pulled in so many different areas. And it can make us feel overwhelmed. It can cause us to feel disillusioned. It can even pull us away from Jesus, from the church, from the life that we've been called to. But the message to the church in Ephesus had a clear instruction to finding their way back to the main point. Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. Consider how far you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. Repent and do the things you did at first. This is the best starting point for reflecting and refinding our love for God. By repenting, coming before him, humbling ourselves before him. This leads us to remember that it's not about us. It's not about our actions. It's not about what we can do. But it's all about God. It's all about him. And this should be a stance that we take every single day as we get out of bed. to never forget that excitement and joy that a relationship with Jesus can bring. And so we need to ask ourselves, we need to go back and ask ourselves, what was it that I did at first? What was it like when I first became a Christian, when I first made that decision to follow Jesus? Maybe it was that we were so excited to find out more that we were just reading the Bible every day. Maybe it was that we just loved being in worship. Maybe it was that as we drove home, we just put on worship. That when we were in the shower, we had the worship on. That as we were cooking, we were just listening to worship music. What about how you worship now? Do you still worship with that same passion? Or has the song become too familiar that now you just stand there with your arms crossed, mumbling along? That once upon a time your hands were out there, stretched high as you sang passionately, but slowly your hands started dropping as it became less exciting to you, as you got used to the songs. And finally, you're just standing there, not even participating in a moment where you could be connecting with God. Maybe it's that desire that you wanted to find out more, that you wanted to be with other people that believe the same thing as you, and that motivated you to be at every service, to be at every meeting, every gathering, wherever there was anything going on with the church, you wanted to be there because you wanted to find out more. When things are new and exciting, we often want to spend that time finding out about them. Think about it when you get a new phone. I got a new phone a few weeks ago. And if you're anything like me, at the very beginning, the first couple of days, it's all about discovering what your new phone can do. It's all about what features it has, which, if you're an Apple fan, you might not understand because Android's so much more advanced. But it's all about... That is great. When you get a new phone, it's all about, wow, this camera's amazing. I'm so excited to take pictures with it. It's all about, look at this new feature. I can turn on TVs and turn them off with my phone. It's all these exciting things, but then a week in, it just goes back to being a functional phone. Just like your old phone. You just use it to fulfill a purpose. And very often it can be the same way. I think that unless we are intentionally coming back to God, we can sometimes find our relationship with Him is less exciting. We spend less time exploring it. And that can cause us to lose the joy that it should be bringing us. The band's going to be coming up soon. But it's interesting, in 1692, Father Lawrence, he wrote this small book called Practicing the Presence. This book, it was based off this revelation that the presence of God was not something that should be reserved for church services. It was not something that should be reserved for Sunday, but it should just be everyday life. That everyday life should be a walk with Jesus. That we should always be aware that God's presence is with us. And he wrote, "Least keep my recommendation in mind, that you think of God often, by day, by night, in your business and even in your diversions. He is always near you and with you. Leave him not alone. You would think it rude to leave a friend alone who came to visit you. Why then must God be neglected? Do not forget him, but think on him often. Adore him continually. Live and die with him. This is the glorious work of a Christian. In a word, this is our profession. If we do not know it, we must learn it." That's the relationship we should be having. That everyday, regular connection with Jesus. When Jesus came to die on a cross, it was to break the old path to God that was based on what we could do ourselves. A standard that we would always fall short of. Instead, now we have this privilege, this freedom of accessing God because of a relationship with Jesus. But I find it devastating to think that we could almost put ourselves back into a position where it's all about our actions, about how we can make ourselves perfect, about what we can do to make ourselves worthy. That as life gets so busy and it feels like we're being dragged in multiple directions with all the good things that are involved in our life, we somehow miss out on the main thing. That we somehow miss out on Jesus. That loving, freedom-giving relationship with Jesus. It's Jesus that's the source of our power. It's his love that's the motivation for us to keep on going. It's that relationship with him that we should be striving for. Once you have that relationship with Jesus, then we are meant to be making a difference. Jesus' life on earth was an example of this. He was there to make a difference. He was there to help people. And we are called to do that as well. See, the thing is, God designed you to be part of this world and change it. His intention for you was to make a difference. You were not meant to just walk through this earth and just get through it, clock over the days and just get through your life. But rather, you were made so that you would go into every situation, every environment. You would bring God into it and you would change it. That people's lives, that they would be made better because you were in it. That your workplace would be healthier just because you're part of it. That your friend group would be stronger because of you. God designed you to be effective, to make a difference. And so it is right for us to be involved in this world, to be doing good, to be being good, to be serving others, to be changing environments for the better, to bring light into dark situations, providing biblical wisdom and truth when people have confusion. But all of this has to stem from a relationship with Jesus. Do not forget your first love, because that's the source of your power. Do not forget Jesus, because he is your motivation to keep going. Do not forget your first love, because that regular, passionate relationship with Jesus is how you're going to make a difference. With Jesus in your life, everything can change. Everything can change, because suddenly you have the ability to get up and do something. You have the ability to wake up on a Monday and go into your workplace and not just be battered around by what's going on, but go in and be the change. You have the ability to be the person that can draw others to God, to bring them into relationship with him as they see him in you. You have the ability to make a difference, but it all comes down to that relationship we need to have with him first. Do not forget your first love, because that's where everything changes. Now, I'm going to be back in a minute, because I'm aware that just in life, you can get battered around and lose that focus. You can lose your main focus. So I want to make sure that you have that opportunity to come back to Jesus again today, to say, I want to have a life with you. And I'm also aware that maybe you're here and you don't have that relationship. And so that's going to be a moment for you as well. Because here and now is the moment that you can make that decision. But before then, would you like to just stand with me? The band's going to come in. And they're just going to lead us in a song. But as they do, stretch out to God. Remember that first love. Remember why you came back to him. Accept him back into your life. Be ready for everything that he wants to do in your life. And I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, thank you for joining us for this YouTube video presentation of our latest ministry. We hope you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why don't you subscribe to our channel? Better still, send us some feedback. If you have questions, let us know. We'd be more than happy to interact and engage with you. Thank you again, and we hope that you will join us soon. Why not try and make it to one of our services one Sunday? We're meeting here in Norwich from 10:30 a.m. and then again at 5 p.m. at night. We'd love to see you. God bless you.